and welcome back. In today's session, we are going to talk about data. Now, data is the cornerstone of so many operations, including artificial intelligence, machine learning, data mining, neural networks, data science, big data, and so on. After all, it's not a coincidence that the term data features in many of these subsets as well. Now, there is a reason that data is so important for artificial intelligence because machines have a very different way of learning things. Unlike humans, machines do not have the sensory capabilities that we possess. Hence, data is so important for a machine to understand what is happening around its world and how it's actually going to recognize different objects. So to begin with, I want to take you back to the basics of data. Here, we are actually going to understand how much data are we actually consuming in terms of per hour, per day, per month, and per year. Not only that, we are consuming data at an individual level, at an organizational level, and also at a national level. So to begin with, a byte is 8 bits, right? We all know that. Once we move forward, almost 1000 kilobytes consist of a megabyte. Similarly, 1000 megabytes consists of 1 gigabyte. 1000 gigabytes consists of 1 terabyte, and 1000 terabytes consists of petabytes. And well, that's not all. Actually, we move forward and 1000 petabytes consists of 1 exabyte. Now, most of us are very familiar with terms like GB or TB these days because a lot of our hard drives, a lot of our data which we contain, a lot of the laptops which we buy have the capacity in these ranges, right? But we are not very comfortable or common with terms like petabyte, exabyte, or even zettabyte, right? Once we move forward. Uh, in in a context, if 1 gigabyte was the size of planet Earth, then 1 exabyte is actually the size of the sun. And that is quite a difference, isn't it? I mean, the Earth and the sun. So now you can imagine how vast is the difference between a single gigabyte and a single exabyte. So now that you have a clear indication of how big an exabyte is, I just want to show you how much data we have been consuming as a world altogether. So if we go back almost 15 to 16 years ago in the year 2005, this amount of data was almost negligible, and it's not surprising. We did not have a lot of social media. Facebook had just come up. Internet was not very common, especially in developing countries, so on and so forth. As we moved forward to the year 2010, we could see a slight rise in data. Similarly, as we moved on to 2015, we were almost reaching 9 to 10,000 exabytes of data being consumed every year. But the real boom has actually come in the last 5 to 6 years. With rapid development in developing countries, more access to people through internet, fiber optic networks, etc., and obviously the rise of social media, we have seen an enormous rise in consumption of data. So much so that in the year 2020, which was also the advent of COVID-19, we have seen almost 40,000 exabytes of data being consumed. Now, if you recall, 1 exabyte is the size of the sun if we compare it to a gigabyte. And just last year or a couple of years ago, we have consumed 40 times that amount of data. 40,000 times actually, not 40 times. So what can we do with all this data? I mean, this is a huge amount of data, right? So as I told you before, that data is the universal truth for artificial intelligence. And not only that, the enormity of data has actually led to a new field known as big data. And big data is not just a lot of data, right? It actually relates to the complexity of data as well. So a very simple example of that would be if we start calculating how many burgers McDonald's sells in a year in a specific country, that would amount to thousands, if not millions of burgers. but that would not actually constitute big data. Why? Because the vector, right, the direction of the data is singular, or maybe it can be multiple burgers, but it's not really complex. So when we talk about big data, we actually mean how many people walk into a McDonald's every hour. At the same time, we are also looking at who consumes what burger, right? We are also seeing who has a higher probability of consuming a burger. We can always categorize the data on the basis of male or female. We can categorize it on the basis of age. We can categorize it on the basis of time of the day, so on and so forth. And when we actually calculate all this data together and we try to analyze all this data together, that actually amounts to big data. So training a machine becomes relatively so much easier if you have good quality data in huge numbers. The entire objective of this video was just to give you a very brief insight on how much data we are actually consuming right now and how much potential data is out there for our machines to be actually trained. Well, thanks for watching this video. I hope to see you in the next one.